with the finance department over here at the city of Topeka, and super excited to have each one of you making the time to join us. We had a great session last week for our first one. This is our second one, and today we're here to talk about quality of life. So two, three ground rules. For one, we're doing a lot of brainstorming today, and so there's no bad ideas. Feel free to jump in. Feel free to say your mind. No judgment here. For those of you that do have cameras, politely we'd ask that you have your cameras on. The reason for that is Zoom makes communication difficult. You know, when we're sitting across the table from one another, we can read body language, we can see expressions. It's really hard to do in Zoom. And so if you've got a camera, politely would ask that you use those. But certainly understand that if you don't, we're just happy to have you. Patty, I'm probably missing a couple of other things, but welcome to everybody here, and I'm going to turn it back over to Patty.
Great, thank you, Steve. And if you missed anything, I'm sure we'll pick it up later because it'll hit us, hit us all probably at the same time. So welcome everybody. My name is Patty Gentrip, and I'm with KU's Public Management Center. And I and my colleague Bree Youngeberg have been working with the city staff and elected officials on this process, and we're really pleased to be here. So we have several of you who were with us last week for the neighborhoods discussion. Welcome back to the quality of life discussion. You pretty much know the drill. So it's the same process that we used last week that we'll be using on each of these meetings. And so here's our agenda for this evening. So after I kind of go through this, we'll do some introductions of everybody who's participating this evening, whether a citizen or an elected official or a staff member, and staff members have different roles this evening as well. So we'll be doing those introductions. Then I'll be talking with you specifically about what this process looks like, what's unfolding over the next couple of weeks, and how the city anticipates using the great feedback that we know that you'll be providing. We want to make sure then also that, before we really kind of start those real brainstorming sessions, that everybody kind of comes at it from the same, at least kind of base of information. And so Adam Vaughn of the city will be giving an overview of an environmental scan. Next, we'll be talking about, okay, we can't really decide how we're going to get there if we don't know where we're going. And so what does the future look like for when we consider quality of life in Topeka? From there, we'll be identifying then, okay, if we kind of know what success looks like in terms of that future, then what's kind of the universe of things that we should be doing to achieve that successful vision. And then we'll go through a prioritization exercise. I will tell you that last week we used every minute of the 4 hours. We do have breaks. Some of them are longer than others because the staff and consulting team has to huddle and kind of to prepare for the next segment, because we don't know what you're going to say. So it's hard for us to do all the preparation from one segment to the other. So we have not quite as many people involved this week as we did last week. So it's possible that we won't go until 8 o'clock. And the other thing too is we reserve the option to perhaps not finalize the prioritization exercise tonight, but be following up with you tomorrow. We had fully intended to have that process completed during each workshop. However, based upon last week's work, we found that there was so much great information that came forward that we weren't able to give it the time that it was important to give to really kind of coalesce those opportunities for priorities. So before I go forward with that, any question about what we're going to be doing tonight together? Okay, so with that, we're going to go ahead and do introductions. And so I hope that you saw this on the agenda that was sent out. We would like everybody to participate in the introductions. We asked that because there are a lot of people, it's going to take a while, right? So that's why we've asked for just like no more than really 30 seconds. So your name, kind of your position or your affiliation, and then your hopes for this process. And specifically, if you can talk about the hopes for this process as it relates to quality of life. Okay. So with that, I'm just going to I'm going to go down my screen here. I'm just going to start up with, well, maybe I'll start at the bottom of my screen because I don't like to really start with staff, but let's go ahead and start with staff. Adam, you're up.
Hi, everybody. My name is Adam Vaughn. I work in the budget office for the city of Topeka. I'm really excited to do this particular priority, quality of life. I think there's a lot of opportunity for creative ideas, and we're excited to hear all of your thoughts and hope we can do what we can to make it more of a reality. Thanks.
Thank you. Kalea.
Okay, yeah, so my name is Kalea. I am also out of the budget office. I'm the grants administrator. So I'm just one of the facilitators for one of the breakout sessions tonight.
And what Kalea did not share with you is that she just started her position a couple of weeks ago remotely, and she just moved to your community on Friday. I heard you arrived. So yeah, so she's a new community member. And let's see, Jaron, is that how you pronounce your name? And I apologize, y'all, if I mispronounce names. So Jaron?
You got it right, if you can hear
Excellent.
me. You got it right, which is impressive. So yeah, so Jaron Caffrey, just graduated from Washburn in this past December. Live in Topeka though, and work full-time here in Topeka. Will be pursuing my master's starting in August. So looking forward to, from a young person's perspective of, hearing a lot from other young people of the common, there's nothing to do in Topeka. There are just negative things, I guess, for the most part. Looking forward to seeing how we can fix that and how we can spin that around. So good to be here.
Great, thank you, Jaron. Sherry.
Good afternoon. I'm Sherry Schoonover. I'm the Deputy IT Director for the City of Topeka. And normally I focus on technologies, data, and processes. And one of the things that we saw during the COVID time of how challenged some of our neighborhoods are and our individuals to actually getting services. So I want to listen. I want to hear of what we can do better to provide the information and how we can support our citizens.
Great, thank you, Sherry. Kim.
Yes, I'm Kim Thompson, retired Colonel, United States Air Force, combat engineers, 30 years. I'm also the Vice President for the Central Park Neighborhood Improvement Association and the Vice Chair for the Citizen Advisory Council. And I'd like to see what we can do for synergy with alignment from these particular processes and efforts with the collaboration efforts we have at the CAC within the NIA's Neighborhood Improvement Associations.
Great, thank you, Kim. Let's see, my tiles have moved around. Deborah.
Hi, it took me a minute to find my picture again to unmute. I'm Deborah Swank. I live in Central Topeka. I am a realtor in Topeka. I have quality of life has so many different avenues. Services for the community, as that was just mentioned a few minutes ago, finding a way that we can develop a community where people want to come and live here, and then they're going to feed, then that's where the jobs will follow. But with remote working now, it's even more important to have a community that people want to live in. It's not just the jobs that's going to bring people here. So we need to figure out how we can influence that and bring young people. I've also been on the Sustainability Advisory Board for a number of years, and sustainability and quality of life go hand in hand. I don't know that you can discuss one without discussing the other. So I will be interested to see what everybody has to say today. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Deborah. Glad you're back with us. Clark.
Good afternoon. I'm Clark Duffy. I teach a public budgeting class at Washburn University. And thank you to a kind invitation from the city of Topeka members of the class are participating in this process, and we have a number of students that will be participating tonight. So thank you for the city, and we look forward to your input.
Yeah, glad to have you and the students along for the ride. We really appreciate it. Jill.
Hi, my name is Jill Rice, and I wear a couple of different hats. I am on staff with a church here in Topeka, Fellowship High Crest. I am a director of ministries for that church. We are located in the High Crest neighborhood. I also am a part of the High Crest NIA, and getting more involved with that, and just coming on board with the CAC as well. So learning lots of things in that area. Yeah, quality of life is, just like someone else said, is super, like, very wide and broad topic. Lots of different areas there. So definitely things from access to jobs and transportation to engaging events. Sometimes I think it's just connecting people to the things that are actually happening in Topeka. There are lots of fun and exciting things that are happening here. We don't always know about them. Sometimes we hear about them after they've happened, and really figuring out, is there a better way that we can share the stories about what is happening in Topeka? So.
Great, thank you, Jill. Yeah, what one person's quality of life is might be different from somebody else's. Exactly. Yeah. Tom.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. My name's Tom Underwood. I'm the executive director of the Noto Arts Entertainment District. You know, quality of life is in our mission statement. And I talk a lot. In my emails and communications, we talk about how Noto exists, and its mission is to enhance the quality of life. Well, as other people have said, that's kind of a vague concept. I may have an idea about what I mean, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's in sync with what other people think. And so I think maybe part of this is that when we talk about quality of life, we need to spend some time thinking about, you know, what are those metrics? And I'm not talking about actual numbers per se, but what are those indicators of what quality of life means? And you know, how do we strive for that? And I think with the various factions within the community, how can we be in alignment so that we're all working towards common goals?
Great, thank you, Tom. Megan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Durantes, and I am one of Professor Duffy's students at Washburn University. I'm currently a junior studying public administration, and I'm here because I've been living in Topeka for my undergrad, and I've really enjoyed it. And a lot with what Jaren said about how, as college students, one thing we always look for is how can we spend our Friday and Saturday nights? And so I'm really excited to see how I can help Topeka become better.
Great, thank you, Megan. Shamika.
And you said it right, so kudos to you. My name is Shamika Sims. I have lived in Topeka for about 14 or so years. I'm currently secretary with Historic Old Town NIA, kind of hang out with the CAC, and I am here because I have a lot of overlapping identities as a Black woman, as a single mom, and so I think those identities, low income, really affect my perception of Topeka and what it means to live here, especially with not a whole lot of income. So I would just like to see that being represented and reflected, even though I'm 40. You know, you want to be able to live here comfortably, whatever age, whatever income bracket you're at. So that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Shamika. And 40 is young, just in case anybody wants to know. Kathy.
Hi there, my name is Kathy, and I'm a student at Washburn University, and I'm a junior studying public administration, and I'm happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to hear what everyone have to say.
Great, Kathy, thank you. Daisy.
Sorry, everyone. I have like mic issues today, so
No,
please bear
no
with me.
worries.
Hi, I'm Daisy. I think everyone had a great introduction. I think we're all basically here for the same concept. In the daytime, I'm a financial analyst, and in the nighttime, I'm a business consultant owner, and also I'm a vice chair for several committees. I basically am here to make sure there's DI that's implied to this process. Like Tom said, everybody has their own concept of what quality of life can be. I think sometimes when it comes to diversity and inclusion, that comes into play. So I want to see what kind of pieces and information I can help to the party. So
great. Welcome, Daisy. Glad you're here. In maybe both roles, since it's like late afternoon, early evening, we got your daytime and your nighttime
yes.
persona going.
Yes.
John.
Good afternoon, everyone. John Nave here. I represent as Executive Vice President of the Kansas AFL-CIO, and I'm glad to be here and seeing everyone. I know a lot of you on here this evening. My issue, and I've always been a strong advocate for quality of life here in the city of Topeka, because we want our young folks to stay here, but also have the ability to take care of themselves through good jobs, good careers, finish college, stay here, or come back here and live, work, and play. And I think the city of Topeka is somewhat getting on the right track because of some of the things that have been happening recently in the last few years. So I look forward to collaborating with everybody and generating some great ideas. In order to do that quality of life, you got to have a quality income. So that's one of the things that hopefully is that comes to the top when people are being able to go spend money in our community, and also have people come and visit this community when they're traveling through that fork that runs to the Kansas western, or to the west, and then to the Texas Panhandle, and stop and live and check out Topeka.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, John. Marcia.
My name is Marcia, and I live in District 6, and my hopes for the quality of life in Topeka would be that have low crime and the streets be good and the citizens treated well. And then last week I thought of another one because people mentioned it was the water pipes. There's had problems in the neighborhood with water pipes breaking, and lose your water. That's just, I don't like it. I wouldn't make a good pioneer. Anyway, that happened to me. Like, it broke 3 times in one day.
Oh no.
And so I am concerned about that too. So.
Okay, thank you, Marcia.
All right, thank you.
Josh.
Hi, everybody. I'm Josh McInerney. I'm a budget analyst for the city of Topeka, and I'll be playing a facilitation role today. And kind of what I hope to get out of this process is taking what you guys come up with and hence the quality of life, and making the city of Topeka, budget in the way to make the city of Topeka a better place to work and play.
Great, thank you, Josh. Steve, did you want to add anything to?
No, just super excited to have everybody here. Mr. Nave is somebody that I have a deep appreciation for, even if he does have the Pittsburgh Steelers sitting behind him.
All right, Gretchen.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you virtually. I'm Gretchen Spiker. I'm the Director of Communications for the City of Topeka. Today, I'm going to be a staff participant, so I'm really excited about that role today. I think that communications plays a really unique and important role in quality of life. I've heard a lot of you say, you know, the way we talk about the community, the way we portray our community, all of those things. And so communication really is key. And what I'm excited for about this process is to listen, learn, absorb your ideas, and see what I can do in my role as the Director of Communications to bring those to life and improve. So very excited to be here.
Thanks, Gretchen. Jackie.
Sorry, I couldn't off mute. Sorry. I'm Jackie Russell. I'm with the City of Topeka Human Resources Department, and I'm just hoping to listen and learn this evening everyone's perspective so that I can take that back as to how we can apply it to our organization to help better serve everyone in the community.
Great, thanks, Jackie. And I think last but not least, Sheldon.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sheldon Kern. I'm another of Clark's students at Washburn. I'm a senior studying in public administration. What I'd like to get out of today's meeting is the quality of life for disabled citizens of Topeka.
Great, thank you. Welcome. Okay, did I get everybody? I think I got everybody from what I can, even though tiles are moving. So, well, thank you for introducing yourselves to one another. And while it's not the same as actually being in the room together, I think it does give us some perspective. And I think it was Daisy who said, there's kind of common refrains here, right? I mean, certainly different aspects of quality of life that you kind of all touched on. And we mentioned that that's different. That's something different to probably each one of you, but that's why we're coming together to see kind of where those commonalities are and recommendations that you would have for the city going forward. And I don't know that I've ever heard somebody on a similar kind of discussion say, I'm here, but I don't really care about my community, right? You guys care about your community and from different perspectives. And so we're just real pleased to have all of you. So thank you for making time for us today. So let's talk just a little bit about the process then, okay? So we know what we're doing this evening, but just to kind of give you that kind of bigger notion, broader notion about what we're doing. So the City Council established 5 distinct priorities in their 2022 budget. And you see them listed here on the screen. And tonight we're going to be talking specifically about the selected strategic investments toward quality of life. So even though that the council had identified those 5 priorities and also had kind of some broad goals specified in each of those priorities, they really said, we want to understand more what these mean for our community. And so that's the reason we're going through this process. And so first of all, what we really want to understand is what success looks like. So what does success look like in each of those five priorities? Because as I mentioned earlier, unless we know where we're going, we can't determine how to get there. So then we'll be identifying those specific goals and objectives and coming to the priorities within each of those 5 areas. There will be 6 workshops, and so 1 for each of the 5 priorities, and then a final workshop, the 6th workshop, at which everybody will be invited to participate so that we can have a conversation of 100 to 125 people regarding the outcomes and where we go next. You will have seen from our introductions that we have participation from 3 distinct groups. And first of all, most of you here are citizens of Topeka. And so we really want to make sure that, that we have your voices. Also, and I know the mayor had intended to be here. He was not on, but it's possible that he will jump out. Looks like Steve maybe has.
No, I know that his schedule today got really out of control.
Yeah.
But he was going to try to catch on a little bit later.
Okay, great. So we'll obviously welcome him if he's able to join us, and then staff. And so I want to make a specific point here is that everybody, all the different stakeholder groups of citizens, elected officials, and staff kind of are on a level playing field. And what I mean by that is there'll be active participation. And so staff won't necessarily just be kind of listening. I know several of them said that they're going to listen because that's what we do as staff, right? So we want to hear what you have to say, but we also want them to bring forward ideas and maybe and be able to answer questions as well. The difference will be that the 3 folks who introduced themselves as facilitators, and so Adam, Josh, and Kalea are going to be facilitating those discussions and really taking notes in each time we have a breakout room. The other thing that I should have mentioned earlier is that we will be having breakout rooms. We will be capturing all of the information from each of those breakout rooms. And so we'll be able to share that in the final report. Also, these are being recorded so that we can post them on, I think we got them up the next day, Gretchen and Bree, if I'm not, yeah, the next day. So we were able to do that. So as your friends and neighbors and people you work with might want to tune in to see what the discussions were. They'll be able to see everything, but except of course the breakout rooms, but they'll be able to see the results of the breakout rooms. Any questions regarding the process itself? You will be invited to that final 6th workshop. It is March 10th at 4 o'clock. again, so please do mark that on your calendars if you haven't had the opportunity to do that already. So here's I've forgotten I have the schedule up here. So here's the schedule. So here we are in week 2, January 31st. So we had our second of the 5, and then March 10th will be that final workshop. So what are we doing this evening? And so I think it's helpful to understand kind of that we're going from broad to more specific in this process. Okay. And these are what you find in the white text are just examples. I have no idea if this is going to be an outcome tonight. So please don't consider it a precursor to what we're expecting. But as we mentioned, the council has identified quality of life as a budget priority. Okay. So that's established as a priority. The next thing that we're going to be asking you all to do is say, okay, within that quality of life category, what are some, where should we be identifying some goals? And let's say that arts and culture ends up being a goal, okay, a goal category. Then what are those specific objectives within the goals? So an objective might be to link arts to health outcomes, okay? And so just want to show you that we're up here with the big categories and where it's kind of like a funnel, and we'll get more specific as the evening and as the process goes on. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Adam Vaughn with the city is going to be sharing his screen and going to be giving you kind of an environmental scan related to the quality of life.
Great. Can everyone see that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thanks again, everyone, for being here. So just as Patty said, this environmental scan is going to give a kind of broad overview of where we're at for the city, and for this particular budget priority. The presentation is a little shorter so that we can have time for questions at the end. And as we learned in our last workshop, a lot of the participants here may know answers to questions. And so as you feel like you have answers to questions, we'll call on you or look to you for some of those answers. So to start things off, we'll talk a little bit about the finances of the city. The city's total operating budget is $339 million. And of that, about 100 million or 98 million is part of the city's general fund. And the reason why we highlight this is because the general fund is the city's main operating fund. And so many of the basic services the city provides comes from the general fund. And as part of Kansas law, we have to present a balanced budget for the general fund each year. And this means that the revenues we expect match the expenses that are going to occur. And so as we've done some forecasting out of the next 5 years, we have found that our expenses are outpacing our expected revenues. And so what this means is that we're going to have to make tough decisions about what city services we want to continue pursuing and what city dollars may need to be moved in another way. And so this entire process that we're going through is important for city staff and governing body members to understand what it is in the community that is being that citizens want prioritized. So again, a little bit more on the revenue sources. This is for the 339 million city budget. All these different funding sources are used to pay for city services. One I want to highlight in particular is property tax. So while this is the entire city, the general fund is funded about a third of it through property tax. And raising the property tax is sometimes seen as the easiest way for cities to get more revenue into their general fund budgets. But this is further complicated by the different taxing entities that also take property taxes. So for every dollar that a citizen in Topeka pays into property tax, only about 25% of it goes to the city. And so we're aware of the different tax burden that various entities place on citizens. And so it's something that we're very careful about and something that we don't want to immediately increase whenever there is a budget shortfall. And so that's, again, I've said it and we'll keep saying it throughout this, that we're really looking at understanding the priorities of the citizens so that we can continue to offer the services that best meet the outcomes that citizens want. In the fall of this last year, we conducted a citizen survey. And when asked about the best reasons to live in the city of Topeka, the citizens responded as the cost of living, affordable housing, and quality housing being the top 3 reasons to live in Topeka. Furthermore, the survey gave us things specifically to work on as a city, and those were maintenance of streets, enforcement of codes and ordinances, the effectiveness of communication, which sounds like that's something that's going to be particularly applicable to this workshop. Overall quality of water and sewer utilities, again mentioned previously, and overall quality of police services. So when the budget was adopted, the governing body also associated some goals with each of the priorities. For quality of life, these were the 2 goals that the governing body adopted, which was to continue to evaluate appropriate levels of support for quality of life endeavors, including youth employment, Topeka Performing Arts Center, social service agencies, Visit Topeka, Downtown Topeka, Riverfront Park, the arts, and multiple other quality of life enhancers, and consider public health impact in the budget decision-making process. So again, kind of a very, very broad goals. And so we're looking at, this is where we were, and we're looking for more input on where we want to go. So this last slide has some of the current initiatives that we pursue with the city. So the first being the Topeka Zoo. We recently entered into a public-private partnership with Friends of Topeka Zoo for them to operate the zoo, and we pay about $2 million to them each year for various costs. We have a social service grants committee that awards grants to various social services throughout the community. The transient guest tax, which is a tax for various tourism aspects in the city. We actually divert some of our transient guest tax to a couple different entities throughout the city, Constitution Hall, Downtown Plaza, and the Jayhawk Theater, all for various capital improvements. The city has its own forestry division, which helps to maintain and trim and do various things with the trees throughout the city. We have 7 parking garages in downtown Topeka, along with a couple other parking lots. And so public parking is something that can enhance the quality of life, and it's something that the city offers. And then of course we have City 4, which is used for communicating and used for sharing things like council meetings and other committees that may be happening throughout the city. So those are just some of the current initiatives that the city is pursuing that relate to quality of life. Not necessarily all encompassing, but it covers most of the things. So that is everything that I have to present. So I'll open it up to each of you for any questions that you may have.
This is John Nave. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, on the social services grant, is that a section, is that particular section attributed to what the city of Topeka used to do, have its social services, and they would help different organizations and agencies, and that used to be like where it'd be a, say for example, hey, we have $1 million for social services, but we're going to have to cut that back to 600,000, and then divvy it out to various social services. Is that similar to what that was, this social service grant now? Is it a different type of program?
It's the same thing, Mr. Nave.
It is the same thing.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. They just different, they call it a little different. Okay, thanks.
Duran.
Yeah, Duran.
Yeah.
Darren, sorry.
No, you're okay. You're okay. Again, it's a unique name. So, no, just curious. what's the main determinant for why expenses are outpacing revenues so much? Is I saw, slight population decline, but is that the driver of that, or is there other reasons for that?
I can take that one. Basically cost of living, cost of inflation is outpacing our revenue growth.
So I guess I would maybe add to that, Steve. So it's everything from not just employee wages, but health insurance, cost to buy materials, to repave roads, equipment. I mean, everything. And just so it's kind of touching every facet of, and cities are not unique that way, right? but they can't just raise their prices.
Right.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question. Tom Underwood with Noto here. So Adam, when you're showing us this, are you outlining what the priorities are? Is this what is supposed to be the direction moving forward? Are you asking us for feedback in regards to, are these what the priorities should be? Because there are things on there that have evolved over the years that are kind of niche programs, if you will, or niche target areas. So I'm trying to understand what was the purpose of showing us that.
Yeah, great question. So the purpose of showing that was to really understand where we are. And I think the best example, when we were talking about what this environmental scan would look like, Patty was saying, we don't want, in the infrastructure group, we don't want to walk in and they say, hey, we should do a capital improvement program. And we would say, well, we already have a capital improvement program. And so that's the main purpose of what we wanted to share, was just where we are right now, the things that have been worked on, the things that we're currently working on. And then, as you'll see throughout this process, we're going to leave it up to you to envision the future of where you want Topeka to be and what kinds of things you think Topeka should do to get there. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Other questions
Anything
for
else?
Adam? Yeah.
Hey, Adam, and I don't know if you would know the answer to this, but when was roughly the last time that, like, cost of living and I guess the city's budget were kind of equal, if that's a good question to be asking? And I don't even know if you can go back that far in this time frame.
That's a good question. So each year the city works with, I think that it's always a new different factors that play into balancing the budget. And so COVID's a good example of, as well, of that they had to cut a lot out of the budget, just as because that was a external factor that a lot of uncertainty about the revenues that we're going to experience. So while that wasn't necessarily cost of living or inflation or anything like that, I think each budget year brings its own challenges. And so the city has to do work to prioritize and offer the programs that will best meet the needs of the citizens. So I'm not sure that really answered your question. I don't know if Steve or Patty maybe have more insight into that.
The only thing I might add is that the city basically gets its revenue from 3 different places: sales tax, property tax, and fees. And so when you look at property tax, we don't set the property values. The county appraiser does that. Typically, the valuation increase on your house is less than what we're seeing on expense inflation. Sales tax, it's been quite a while since the city and county have raised their sales taxes. And so that's just natural growth based on spending. And then fees are fairly flat. So the city has not raised its mill levy now for 10 years, its property tax level. So it's been a while, I think, to try to directly answer your question. It's been a while since the two have been directly in alignment.
So I have a follow-up question. Oh,
Please.
I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead. Yeah, please.
So not to be devil's advocate, but how much conversation will be going forward to Shawnee County between the city of Topeka? Because it looks like or sounds like there's some challenges between what the city is prioritizing and what the county is prioritizing and trying to meet somewhere in the middle, if that's a good question to ask here.
It's a great question to ask. And I think for the purposes of the governing body looking at priorities, it depends, I guess is the straight answer. There were some ideas that came out of last week's session that will require collaboration, not only with the county, but with some other entities. And so those collaborative ideas, we'll see what you come up with today. And it might mean that we have to work with the county, and it might mean we have to work with some other entities.
Great. Any other questions for Adam or Steve? Okay, so now we're going to stop talking at you and asking you to talk to us. But before we do that, let's go ahead and just take a little bit of a break, an 8-minute break. So we'll reconvene at 4:50. I do encourage you to get up, walk around. It's good for the body and brain to do both of those things. And we'll come back and we'll start our first conversation that we'll be doing primarily in breakout rooms. And so we'll see you in 8 minutes. Come back. So as I said, we're going to start making you all do all the work. So that's what you signed up for. So let me first remind you kind of where we are in terms of this process. And so again, the City Council established the budget priorities. Next, we're going to be identifying specific categories in which goals and objectives can be developed. And then the final activity of the evening will be identifying those objectives and then prioritizing them. And so really what we want to do in terms of envisioning the future, what we want to know is if in 5 years, the city has implemented, put resources behind what you're hoping for in terms of quality of life for the city of Topeka, what would the headlines be in the Topeka Capital Journal? So I hope that you saw that in your kind of homework on your agenda, but let's just take a minute or two for you all to kind of ponder that. Again, what headlines would you hope to see in the Topeka Capital Journal related to success in quality of life? Oh, it hasn't been quite 5 minutes, but that's about all I could do with the awkward Zoom silence. And so let's go ahead and also, since you would have seen this before you came today. So now we're going to place you all in breakout rooms, and each of those breakout rooms will have a staff facilitator. We'd like to ask each of you to share with your colleagues in those breakout rooms what your hopes are for the future of Topeka when it comes to quality of life. Then we'd ask that you have somebody from your breakout room be prepared to share what the results of that discussion those discussions were with the rest of the group. So I think we're going to give you about 15 minutes. Bree, is that what we decided on?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. So let's go ahead with 15 minutes. We'll probably, some of us will pop in and out of breakout rooms to see where you're going, if you need, if you're done, or if you need a little bit more time. But we'll try for 15 minutes and then we'll come back. Any questions related to the assignment before we send you away? Okay, enjoy your discussions. If you're in group one, leave your video on, and if you're not in group one, turn off your video. And then, of course, thank you, Adam, for sharing this. We can all kind of read it, but as whoever has been elected the spokesperson kind of goes through them. If you can maybe tell us just a little bit more of the maybe the discussion that you had as you were commenting on what you'd like to see the success look like.
Okay, so we were in the middle of appointing someone. It was between Gretchen and Daisy, and then we got taken out. So Gretchen or Daisy, whoever wants to take this, have at it.
Daisy, do you want to do it?
I'm happy to do it. And Daisy, if you want to jump in at any point, please, please do so. So does that sound like a plan? Thumbs up. So we had quite a few headlines. So the first one was Aqua Park opens on the east side of Topeka. The next one was neighborhood improvements in the east side of Topeka. Topeka and Shawnee County accomplished all Momentum 2027 objectives. So that's the next portion of what we know as Momentum 2022. City of Topeka population grows in census. City of Topeka has public transportation and bus expansion and extends hours. Topeka is more sensitive to LGBTQAI+ groups. City of Topeka Human Relations increases ratings for inclusivity index for LGBTQIA+ community. City of Topeka expands public transportation services for disabled. City of Topeka expands disabled services across the city. City of Topeka restarts free day at the park. So I think we were talking about like Gage Park, right, Daisy? Like around the Topeka Zoo area.
Yeah, I think that was the conversation. I'm sorry if there's an echo. But yeah, it was free day at Gage Park, was it? I'll take the next ones if you don't mind, Gretchen.
Yeah,
okay.
Take it from here.
So then we have City of Topeka celebrates Juneteenth with a citywide celebration. We have City of Topeka expands commerce. New mall owner revitalizes.
Daisy, I'm sorry. And when you say expands commerce, can you tell us just a little bit more? That's pretty broad. So what was that kind of focusing on?
I do believe, and I don't want to get on full points, and
I'll
Sheldon,
take
correct
that from
me.
here.
Oh, thank you, Sheldon.
I was saying bringing in new businesses. To me, I think that that's something that the city has lacked on in the last few years.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sheldon. Let's see here. New mall. Yeah, the new mall owner revitalizes West Ridge. B-lights eliminated. Zero road hazards or defects of the year. Outstanding landscaping award from nationally, which I hope that comes into fact, manifest that into reality. Expansion of riverfront, seeing success. City of Topeka increases opportunities of entertainment. City of Topeka increases opportunities of entertainment in NATO. City of Topeka expands its homeless efforts. We were talking specifically of tiny homes, especially for our veterans in that area. This is where the next three come into. City of Topeka offers relief to the homeless in Tent City. City of Topeka builds tiny homes for the homeless.
Got one more addition. This is Kim. On the part where it talks about the road hazards, that's just trying to say that we go an entire year with no road hazards or defects. That part that says of the year should be for a year.
For the year. Okay, great. So that's both infrastructure and a safety issue. Yeah, great. Well, I really appreciate the breadth of hopes for quality of life. I mean, everything, it is everything literally from social services to businesses to, you know, kind of that entertainment situation. So anybody from your group want to kind of comment on this list or more discussion that you might have had around the headlines themselves?
If I can just chime in here, I'm really grateful to my group. It was, yeah, like you mentioned, it was just a really good conversation. So thank you guys.
Great. Thanks, Kalea. All right, let's go to group 2.
All right.
Adam was, yeah.
I was elected the spokesperson for our group. Great discussions. We started out with Topeka setting the standard, becoming best in class. Just thinking around what are some things that we can become known as best in class in the region and area, and what collaborations can we do on that, similar to things like access to internet that we're already working on. Another topic was top city success. And then the next one was city takes risk, it pays off. And things like universal basic income or green planning.
Nice.
Topeka, the smart city of the Midwest, things around energy, technology, and conservation. Topeka, top city to live in Kansas. Fewer instances of individuals experiencing homelessness and lower crime rates. And then maybe creative solutions around food insecurity and transportation. And then code compliance helps to allocate money to more outcomes. And Topeka, race to the top. Ability there to show other cities what we have done to get to the top of the state, talk about the things that attract people to the city of Topeka, become more effective at our marketing of our city, both inside and outside of Topeka. And then citizens come together to invest in our city. Maybe some projects there that really increase how citizens are working together to improve Topeka. And then Topeka, this is our story. Talking more about how we're sharing our story.
So, and specifically, thank you so much, Jill, for that. So specifically on that, that this is our story, that was really more focused on, so we have the success, so we want to make sure that folks know about it. Is that, yeah.
The effectiveness of our communication and marketing.
Okay, great. Yeah, so this your particular group really focused. And Adam, can you scroll up a little bit? I'm sorry for me, thank you. So really had those kind of big, like, exciting headlines, right? Those banner headlines, city takes risk and it pays off. And then the details there, I appreciate that. So focus on everything from how do we support individuals to how we can become more green. Great. Anybody want to comment on your group's discussion?
Yeah, this is John Nave. I liked our group. I mean, it really kind of got into some of the depth issues of, of our communities. And one of my partners in the chat, my classmates in the chat, talked about investment in ourselves. We all have to invest in our community, and it starts in our communities and work from the center and work to the out. Your strength is in your core. Topeka, when we invest in our core and work outward to the county lines, to the city limits, that brings strength. And I think that sometimes what the problem has been, we weren't investing in our core.
Right. Well, and also too, John, thank you for that. The issue of coming together, right? Investing in the city. So that partnership aspect as well. Great. Anything else, or should we move on to breakout room 3?
This is Shamika.
Yeah, Shamika.
I just wanted to say I really love the idea about telling our story, but talking about people who are marginalized, because when we tend to see stories in the news, we tend to see people who, I'm not going to say that they don't have issues, that's not the correct term, but people who have advantages that others do not have. And we know that Topeka is, really, especially when you're talking about minorities, we're getting poorer. The people who are left behind are the ones who tend to not be able to make it out. So I think it's really important that we tell stories of people who are on the, I won't say on the margins, but we can't just focus on the people who are visibly looking like success. We need more stories of people who are disabled, more people who are LGBTQ plus, people who are low income, and how they are making it work in Topeka, because I think that helps us to fill in our blind spots. We have to figure out a way to fill in our blind spots so we're taking everybody to the table and not just the ones who are able to bring themselves there.
Thank you, Shamika, for that. And also, but also like how telling stories about this is where folks were, right? They were a marginalized community, but this is, look at what's, because of the things our community has done to invest in them, look at where they are now. Am I hearing that? Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
This is John Nave. We still got a
please.
Okay, and what Ms. Sims has said is very important. One of the drawbacks that we haven't done is there's a lot of opportunities for technology, tech jobs, skilled trade jobs out there. The problem that coming down from the state down to our local community, there's been a lack of communication and a lack of marketing strategies to facilitate to get that information out to the communities, just like what Ms. Sims is talking about. When people have an opportunity to lift themselves up through trade skill jobs, technical jobs, manufacturing jobs, then they can lift themselves up and get that training and opportunity to create their own successful environment for themselves, and which means they're out shopping, spending their money, and working, playing in Topeka, investing in our city. So I see some stuff, I know about some things on the horizon that hopefully will come down to the local communities. So, and I'll talk about that way later down in the road if we need to.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, John.
Okay.
All right, shall we move on to room 3 then? All right, room 3, turn on your videos. Here we go.
All right. Our spokesperson for group 3. And some of these are headlines, some of these are more almost like general ideas, I guess, kind of as we were discussing. So thriving riverfront that has arts, culture, recreation, all of that. More entertainment options, whether it be shows or concerts, do more to promote those types of entertainment activities. This headline here, Mom, I'm bored. What do you mean? Live in Topeka. I think that is a nice, a goal as we're looking 5 years from now. That would be an awesome headline to be having. Funding and resources evenly distributed across the city, since currently sometimes there are areas that get more attention than others. At least that's the perception that some citizens have. More pride of being a member of the Topeka community via efforts of quality of life initiatives. More investments across all neighborhoods or areas of the community, and a diversity of those investments, whether it be public safety or business investments, beautification of community, etc. Reduction of blight within the community, that's certainly broad and all-encompassing there across the city. Increase the perception, the enthusiasm of the city from people outside of the community. So especially, first impressions, we talked a bit about that. People that might be coming, whether they be their students and their families visiting the university, they're driving along I-70, whatever the case may be, having a good first impression, helping with that perception, I think is really helpful as we're looking at being a draw of other people that don't live within the city, whether it be from those investments, from people spending their money here, moving here, those types of things. And then a final headline there, Topeka, a hidden beauty.
And does that, thank you, Duran, does that fit the Topeka, a hidden beauty, does that fit in with like reducing the blight, making, do the beautification efforts, those kinds of things.
Megan, I'll let you jump in there if you have anything. But yeah, I think that was kind of those lines of, as we're looking towards the future of what can we do to reduce blight, make those investments in different things to, transform the city and, really showcase that out to the public, the rest of the state, I guess, the opportunities that exist here and people just might not know about them.
Megan, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Nope, Jaren covered most of it.
Okay. What about any of the rest of you on Jaren's team? So as we are going through these, I mean, it's amazing to me, just kind of, again, the breadth of the kinds of headlines. Is there anything that, as you were listening to your colleagues speak, this is that question for the entire group, that you felt like is missing, like we're really missing the boat if we're not talking about other successes we want to see in terms of quality of life? Nothing?
Well, I think there are a lot of things that we haven't specifically talked about. I mean, there've been a lot of broad things said here that probably most things, I mean, if you want specific, you're talking about everything from the urban forest to, to energy reduction and the water, we had one person concerned about water right to start out with. I mean, part of that is supporting our water department and allowing them to have rates and things so that we isn't going to take another 100 years to replace water lines. So, I mean, there's so many specifics, but I'm not sure if we didn't kind of cover most of that on the.
No, so yeah, no, absolutely, Deborah. And so as you know, so what our job here next is the staff and consulting team is, as you all go on your next break, we're going to be taking a look at not only what was said in your introductions, as well as your hopes as revealed in these headlines, and try to kind of coalesce them into 3, 4, 5 categories in which you will then get more specific in terms of what those goals and objectives might be. Anybody else want to add to the list?
Yeah, this is Kim with the CAC.
Yes, Kim.
One of the things that kind of ties a lot of this together is the concept of a smart city and future city, and how we look at moving forward with web-centric or technology-centric interactions with each other. So if you think that's appropriate, I think it could be added.
Yeah, let's do. Great. That's great. Actually, that's helpful, Kim, as I was considering some of those comments, like what's a kind of more of an overarching for some of those, maybe a little bit more specific. So that's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Yes, please go ahead, Shamika. No, please. Yeah, go.
I just really want to quickly add that we really need to bridge the gap between English speakers and Spanish speakers. That's been a real struggle, at least from a NIA standpoint. So I attribute that to quality of life, because if we're going to get everyone invested, we cannot forget about people whose first language is not English, and how we bridge that connection for them to their communities.
Okay, great. Yeah, Jill's applauding that notion. Okay, it is 5:30 by my computer clock. Let's give you guys actually, how about a 12-minute break? Okay, a 12-minute break. And when you come back, we will hopefully be able to present to you kind of where we think these goal categories are, and we'll be able to develop some more specific objectives. So we'll see you in 12 minutes. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. So we took, again, considering your comments that you made in your introductions, as well as the discussion that you had with your headlines, we've come up with 4 goal categories, and I want to share those with you. And this is, remember, we started with the priority, the governing body priority is quality of life. Now we're going to goal categories, and then you'll be identifying specific objectives within those goal categories. So here, I hope that you can see, is that big enough for everybody to see? Okay, great. So goal number 1, a community of belonging. And so this is where you would get at more specific goals about, these are the things that you guys were mentioned, the disabled, LGBTQIA, Juneteenth, kind of bridging cultural divides. And that was bridging culture divides was the discussion about, understanding we have a lot of, Spanish speaking population and making sure that we kind of bridge those as well. So those are the kinds of goals that specific goals that we would see under that category. Vibrant.
Hey, Patty.
Yes.
Someone asked in the chat if you could make it bigger, the screen.
Oh, sure. Thank you for letting me know that. Is this big enough, or should we go to 150? There we go. Thank you, Bree, for that. Appreciate it. So goal 2, vibrant or beautification. We didn't really come up with kind of exactly what that might be, but again, there was a lot of discussion related to blight reduction, landscaping, those kinds of things. And so what is that really? I think there was also some conversation about housing and that kind of thing. So that's where what that category would encompass. Top city in tech. And so again, everything from making sure that everybody, has Wi-Fi, to having sustainable practices, to having new companies that were tech related. Didn't include this in this quick parenthetical comment, but it could also be, tech education, skills, and that kind of thing. And then Topeka is a place, is the place to be. And this would really focus more on activities, whether it's that nightlife issue or cultural arts, partnering, with the different organizations and those kinds of things. So how does that feel to you guys in terms of, did we, in those 4 categories, as you think about kind of the specific things that you want to see Topeka do, can they fit in one of those categories? Or did we miss the mark? Thank you, Jaren, for your positive affirmation of nodding up and down. I appreciate that. Anybody? I see others. I see other nods, thumbs up. Did we miss anything?
Yeah, this is Tom. I guess I feel like these are nice goals. These are nice, broad, aspirational things. And I understand that part of the next step is to drive down, but I guess I'm looking at these broad goals, and I feel that what's missing is a accountability in regards to public policy. And I'm sure that can be incorporated within these things, but when I bring up the issue, maybe it has to do with diversity or inclusiveness, when I bring up the issue of equity of economic distribution, that seems to be a gap here. I'm not seeing where that's going to fit in here. When we talk about the economic development opportunities across the community, and that seems to be a lopsided, I'm not quite seeing where that's going to fit in here. So no, in my opinion, I think that we've missed the mark on this.
So what we tried, I'm sorry?
Go ahead, Patty.
Oh, as I say, so what we tried to do is kind of listen to where there are common themes were, Tom. And so I do think, so a couple of points. So I do think that in that diversity category, you could broaden that. So not just those things that I've listed, but in terms of equitable funding across sectors or across areas of the community. So I think you could broaden that. The other thing that I would comment in terms of public policy, there's a work group that's focused on good governance. I apologize, I don't remember the title off the top of my mind. Improving fiscal sustainability and good governance. And so I think that is an area too where you would see kind of more of those policy objectives. Steve, what would you have something to add to that?
No, I was just gonna ask if, Tom, if you had an idea for another goal. I'm listening to you and I'm wondering, can you articulate that into, half a dozen words?
Well, I think that a goal in regards to quality of life is making sure that Topeka is a place of equitable resources. Topeka is again, you can wordsmith this, but I mean, I think Topeka is a place of holistic assessment. Now, again, that could possibly overlap to some of these other areas, but when I come back and I look at what perceives to be a disparity within different areas of the community, I think is pretty significant. And so whether that has to do with, low income areas, whether it has to do with blighted areas. When I saw your area up there earlier, I mean, I suppose part of that could be within that, but I guess I'm a little taken by what I perceive to be sometimes of narrow lack of a holistic public policy in the community and city, county, so on and so forth. I think it gets very myopic and focused on a particular area, a particular group, a particular current cause, if you will, and at sometimes the expense of, I think, other areas. So I don't know if that makes sense to you or not. Again, I'm trying to be very cautious not to get into a finger pointing or not to get into a blame kind of thing. And that certainly is not what I want to do whatsoever. But I think, I chose quality in life intentionally. Because again, as I said, I think this is part of what our mission is. Well, quality of life is going to be contingent in a large part upon the resources and support that is going to be afforded to us by our public, by city and county government. And so frankly, Patty, I don't see, and you mentioned this at the very beginning, there's overlap between these groups.
Right.
So
Yes.
I don't think there should be a dissection between good public policy and good governance as related to quality of life. I think they have to go hand in hand. This other group may well hit the same thing. They may talk about quality of life too with governance. So I just don't think it should be a dissected area.
So I think Tom, I hear you, but I think where a couple of things are, first of all, we had the neighborhood work group last week, and they focused on many of the issues that you are talking about. We will have the improving fiscal sustainability and good governance work group. We will have the public safety work group, which obviously is a quality of life issue, and so again, we were trying to look at kind of common themes among all the groups, because we can't, we couldn't list all those headlines and say, okay, what are specific goals within each of those. And so I'm certainly open to other suggestions, but I guess, Tom, what would it be if we had a goal related to that, an objective related to that goal, what would it be?
If we had an objective?
Right. So if you're saying equitable distribution and support across the community, what would an objective for that be? Because we're getting more specific here.
Sure. I think an equitable goal or an objective about that would be look at funding distributions that are equitable across the community based upon the different districts. I would look at public safety distribution that is balanced across the entire area, or that would address urgent needs that are highlighted by the different districts. I would focus on, I think an objective could be tourism distribution. That's a particular area of mine that is broader than a couple of key areas that have been identified. So, I mean, those are three objectives that I could identify just off the top of my head that would have to do with equitable distribution of resources.
What do others of you think?
Personally, I think that Tom brings up a really good point, especially because money does fund roughly everything that we want to see Topeka have when it comes to events, when it comes to culture, when it comes to infrastructure, as well as this conversation on the quality of life. I would say that, Tom, your questions and suggestions would better be suited for the governance meeting. You do bring up really good points that do affect quality of life, but I think this one is more better suited for that governance meeting rather than quality of life.
Thank you, Megan. Other thoughts?
Well, Tom, when we were in our breakout room or whatever, did you feel what I said was kind of along the same lines as what you were going towards in regards to, I guess, investments citywide, not just in one area, or was that kind of a different?
Yeah, no, I think that you were aligned with that. You know,
Okay.
and again, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. I mean, the question was, do you think that we've covered everything? And in my estimation, I would say no. Now, if the group doesn't think we want to go down there, that's fine. I just think that I would assess that unless you're going to look at resource distribution across the community as it ties to quality of life, and unless we address that, then I think this is going to be missing the boat.
And I guess for me, and kind of saying that another way, or at least when we had our breakout room, what I resonated with what Tom was saying, especially was, I made the comment of when we look at Topeka and look at investment and development. I think a lot of people see Wanamaker being a clear corridor where a lot of that's happening. Now downtown a little bit more, but what I really agreed with and what I think needs to incorporate, and to me, I think we can probably do this within maybe the first goal, and I can't remember what those first two said. I saw 3 and 4, but I couldn't remember the first two, so maybe it fits in those both. But for me, I think it is an important point of when we're looking at whether it be like commercial developments or outside resources coming in, or in relations to opportunities with commerce and the city investing with public safety. It really does touch everything. So it is kind of hard to pinpoint stuff, which is why I think we can probably put it in the first goal. But to me, I think it is important that the city at least focuses somehow of ensuring that all parts of the city are having those investments. And yeah, Patty, I think that's a perfect way to kind of summarize it. Generally while still getting that point. So I'm fine with that, and I think it can kind of fit into some of those other goals that we have laid out already.
What about others? So you guys see, and first of all, Tom, I really appreciate you. I'm glad that you raised that, so please don't take my discussion of putting it back, other than making sure that we're, kind of have some consensus here. So I'm going to appreciate Megan and Jaron with their comments. So did you guys see that I put in the chat, ensure, let's see, what did I put? Ensure equitable investment across the community. Does that? And again, there will be, I do think we'll have a discussion related to this with the good governance and fiscal sustainability discussion. We will see a lot of crossover, but shall we go ahead and add that? Do I see like thumbs up or thumbs down? You don't have to do this. You can use your emoji if you want.
Shamika, did you have something to say? Sorry, I see your hand up.
Jill had her hand up first, so I'm going to go after Jill.
Oh, I can't see all that.
Jill, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. And Jill, and then Shamika, thank you. I apologize. Thanks for that, Duran.
You're muted.
Oh, Jill, you're on mute.
Lord have mercy. Okay. Yes, I'm on board with Tom, and I'm definitely on board with adding that ensure equitable investment across the community. And I think that at every point in all 4 of these categories, we need to be asking the question of how do we carry this out in an equitable way across our community? Like, how do we make sure that when we talk about top city in tech, that we're not leaving out East Topeka in that conversation? or we're not leading out Tennessee Town, or like
So
how do we make sure that like all of our quality of life initiatives are implemented in an equitable way? Like that's got to be incorporated into all of them, not just a stand like
right.
not.
And it's in some ways that's right. That's a guiding principle. It's not a goal, right? It should be a thread throughout all of them. But
And I also appreciate Tom saying that it is important enough to be its own goal to assess how well are we doing that right now. Like what we have to set a benchmark to identify how well are we doing that, to see how well we're going to improve that. Does that make sense?
Shamika, did you have something you wanted to add?
I put it in the chat and.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, well, y'all, catch me or correct me, but when you talk about ensure equitable investment, I wonder if we could put standard of living in that too, as in, like, if you live, no matter where you live in the city, you should be able to, I'm just throwing out a number, you should be able to, like, let's say if your income is $27,000, there's a place in the city that you can live, no matter what side of town you're on or where you're at. There's a space for you so that everything isn't concentrated in LMI communities or things of this nature. So I'm just getting feedback. What do y'all think? I'm curious.
I totally agree.
I think those could be specific goals under either this new one, ensure equitable investment across the community, or frankly, a community of belonging. So I put, we put those like kind of in the parenthetical comments by the goals as just like, okay, here's what we saw. So those don't be limited when we go to identify more specifics. Don't be limited by what you saw in those parentheses, please. Does that make sense? Josh or Adam, have either of you, I'm sorry, I've been added this last one, ensure equitable investment across the community to the doc. I guess I could do that in real time.
Yeah, we can add it. We can add it.
Okay. Yes. Kim?
Would it help if there was a bit of discussion, since we're talking about outcome-based budgeting, with the notion of what's an output versus an outcome and how you do that linkage? It seems like maybe there's not a clear understanding of really what outcome-based budgeting is trying to accomplish. Is there some fuzziness coming across as I see it?
Great point, Kim. Steve, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I think what we're looking at, Kim, when we say outcome-based budgeting are really long-term outcomes. Whereas, there's short-term outcomes, there's intermediate outcomes, but when we talk about this, we're talking about measurable goals that may take, in some cases, 3 to 5 years to hit. If you talk about affordable housing, an output might be 150 new housing units. But really, to get to affordable housing across the city, that's a much longer proposition.
I mean, you're on the right tracks, Steve. That's what I'm getting at, is that outcomes are qualitative based, outputs are more quantitative based. And we're looking for that linkage to say how they related to your strategic goals. And outcome based, as I understand it, has a high linkage to the idea of strategic goals that you just said. I'm just not hearing the words, even if they're put in a more not quite so technical language. So it's, at some point we're gonna have to talk about efficiency indicators, things of this nature. I know you are, at least. But when you look at it, about establishing the outcomes, developing approaches, evaluation, making all those sort of things, it seems in the totality of when all these meetings are together, at some point we're going to be trying to tell everybody that's helping. And it was partly done in the beginning introduction of just what outcome-based budgeting means as we try to put these different inputs against it.
Yeah, Kim, thanks. I mean, in essence, what it means is if we put our money where our mouth is, what is the success that we're going to see? Right? It means we're going to be a community of belonging. It means that we're going to have affordable housing. It means we're going to, you know, be the top city in tech. But what the governing body wants to do is understand what the community wants, so then they can figure out how to allocate those resources. So
yeah, and I have that, Patty. I guess
oh, I know you do, Kim. I'm sure I know you do.
I don't know if it's coming across as, you know, the outcomes or results of the outputs from these programs, and the outcomes are the why. It's why we're doing it. So I just kind of wanted to emphasize that to help the discussion as we go on.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so we've added the fifth goal category. Anything else that we need to talk about before we go into the breakout rooms? And this is going to be a long breakout room, folks, because each of the breakout groups will get to add more specifics to each of those goal categories. Okay. And so, for instance, something more specific might be around Juneteenth. Something more specific might be around tech education. Something more specific, you know, so this is really where you get to kind of say, this is really what I want to have happen. This is not a place for, well, yes, you can discuss, but it's not a place to dispute or argue or decide what a priority is. If everybody has something that they'd like to have considered by this group, as well as the governing body, then it gets to get on the list. Anything else? Steve, anything other directions I should share with folks?
No, I was just going to emphasize the brainstorming rules. Just, okay. You know, there are no bad ideas. Put them out there and move on.
Do we want to take like a 10-minute or 6 till 6:15, just a break? And nope. Okay, great. That's fine. Everybody, you're all adults. So if you need to run from your breakout room, then you know you can. So let's go ahead and Bree, let's
wait. How long is the breakout room?
Well, we'll pop in. I would say probably 45 minutes, because there's 5 areas to talk about, 3 groups to talk about each of the areas, and so participants know that your facilitators have been through this process before, so they know how to guide through the process. So, okay, all right, we'll be popping in and out. Thank you. Hey, welcome back, everyone. So that is like quite the list, folks. So I think what's going to have to happen is Steve's going to go rob every bank in just kidding, in Topeka. But what I'd like to do, I think each of you had an opportunity to take a look at the great list, correct? Is that right? Everybody had an opportunity to take a look at the list. So what, if anything, was a surprise to you? Whether you can't believe somebody really wanted to do it, or was like, I hadn't even thought of that. Yes, absolutely, we should be doing something like that.
I think for me, the tech factor, I can't see everybody's names anymore. Was that Sherry that was talking about tech? It might have been. Okay, it was. So there's already apparently some cool stuff happening in Topeka with regard to tech, and I thought, man, why don't I like really know that, you know? So I thought that was really cool.
Great. Others, so either what you found out was already happening, or things that like, gosh, we absolutely should be doing that you hadn't thought of. Okay, is there anything that was raised, and even if you raised it, that you would like to emphasize to the entire group, that why it's so important that we be focusing on something specific? Oh my, it's a Monday, everyone. We started out this day.
Hey, Patty, do you have the list that you can put on the screen?
Sure.
Or Josh or Adam? Just thought maybe if we
Yeah.
rolled up to goal 1 and just, I know there was stuff added after we went through it, so just a chance to flip back through it real quick. See if this catches anything on here that catches anybody's fancy.
And or go ahead, Shamika, please. Yeah.
Okay, super quick. I think it's really important that we set a standard of living for various family sizes. People need to know how much money it takes to comfortably live here. And I think if we can really help people to see, what it takes to live here, they're more likely to, move here and have jobs here and stay here. I think without that narrowing or understanding, I think it's more difficult for people to see themselves being here. We can't just say the cost of living is cheap. We know that, but what does it take to be here?
Okay.
So I think that's helpful.
Josh, can we add standard of living to that? I think is it on there?
It is. It's right here.
Okay, I got it. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. There's a lot there.
I was going to chime in on that right there with somebody creating opportunities for young people to see themselves in Topeka. Someone who just graduated from Washburn, I would say easily, and maybe there's actual statistics to support this, maybe I'm mistaken, but I would say easily 70% of graduates are, they're moving out of Topeka after they graduate. Usually you're only staying in Topeka if you're originally from Topeka, or if you have maybe an accounting degree, you get picked up by one of the several growing accounting firms here in town, and some others again. So I don't want to make that too generalized, but that's just to say that I think that there's ample opportunity for internships, especially to be brought to students to show them a path for them to stay in Topeka after they graduate, that they don't have to move and go to Kansas City or anything, because and some of that just involves students going out and asking themselves. That's what I did, and that's how I have a full-time job now after graduation, because I sought that out. And I think there could certainly be, again, working with businesses. Sometimes businesses don't know that they could have an intern, but there's great opportunities to try one out, type of thing. So just again, as a young person, I wanted to give a plug for that, because I think that when we're looking at things that can sustain themselves, not just pouring money at something that you might not get a return on, I think this, looking at the future of the city, is a really crucial opportunity, both at just retaining population and attracting people and their dollars along with it, of maybe reversing some of these trends that are going down and having really positive results for the future.
Great, thank you, Jaron. Jill.
Yeah, I would just add to that, not only college students, but high school students as well. Young people needs to include college and high school.
Okay. Okay.
As a retiree and a veteran, both Iraq, Afghanistan, Korea, and various other, and was considering that the VA hospitals here, it's interesting to me. The number right now, I have one son that lives and teaches in Japan, another lives and teaches in China, one that's returned, lived and taught in Korea. The notion that, if you leave, you're not going to come back, or that these opportunities were here in Topeka. One of them was a graduate from the Defense Language Institute, DLI. It seems like a very neglected sector of attraction is retirees, myself, and retirees that are veterans. And veterans bring a lot of diverse skills, talents, exposures, and experiences with them that just don't seem to resonate. And it seems like we're, considering we have the VA here, there's not much of a, in terms of Topeka, and saying this is a place where we should have our veterans.
Great. Kim, is this okay then that I put this here?
Wherever you want's fine with me.
Okay. Well, it's just a list. So right now, so. Okay, vibrant, the beautification issues. So any comments on any of these? There was a lot of discussion related both to infrastructure, specifically to sidewalks, kind of the blight, the blight issue, really having a comprehensive blight program, I think, code compliance. Those were kind of and then like kind of beautification, whether it's like landscaping and entryways or community gardens, that kind of thing. So that's kind of what I saw in this particular category. Anybody else want to comment on anything here?
Yeah, this is Tom. One of the things I would say is that I know there is a city policy, it's probably a good policy, that the sidewalk in front of a homeowner's or a business owner's area is their responsibility. But again, you've got the challenge. You got a small business or you've got a low income person, they can't afford to do to pay the half price. That doesn't really do any good. It's like getting a grant. It's like, oh, I'll give you $10,000 if you raise $10,000. Like it's a matching grant. It's like, if I don't have $10,000, that means nothing. So I guess I'll just kind of make an asterisk on that a little bit, that maintain sidewalks and edging for bus stops kind of things like, but that's not necessarily, there's got to be resources for small business, for the homeowners, that kind of thing, other than paying half price for that. Because, repairing a sidewalk could be a $6,000 endeavor, and I don't have $3,000 to spend.
Tom, I will tell you that so many communities grapple with that very, very.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to speak too much, but wanted to give I love the land bank ideas, all those incentives for whether it be grants or whatever, for empty houses or empty warehouses.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's awesome, especially for startups. I think having a startup space, out of one of those abandoned places would be really cool. But also just wanted to give a plug for the established landlord policies. That is something, again, as I mentioned in our small group, right around the university. There's been many articles about this gentleman from, I believe he's from Oklahoma, who owns most of those apartment properties. But it's a huge issue. And I think it was Deborah who had mentioned about, educated us a little bit about that Topeka doesn't have necessarily landlord policies in place. And again, I'm not super familiar with that, but if there's anything that can be done from the city council's perspective with that, I think would be really huge to ensure that people are not just getting into affordable housing, but when they get into housing, that the landlords have to make sure that they have AC, that they have sinks that are working, those types of things. So wanted to give that plug for that.
I will second that with that landlord. We don't, at our apartment complex, don't even have access to a mailbox.
Okay, thank you.
Patty, one of the things I just wanted to help those who might not have been in that work room, the reason we talked about like edging, bus stops and sidewalks is in terms of ADA again, where even when we have these electric scooters, if as you go to do certain things in public areas, if they're not fully ADA compliant and so on, it creates issues from uneven sidewalks to debris on the sidewalks, whether that's from detritus, tree branches, from trash, from light, from the little scooters, abandoned, whatever. The whole purpose of the focus of that was for this ADA accessibility.
Okay, that's key right there. Thank you, Kim, for that. Okay, top city and tech. So this was everything from hotspots to electricity. I haven't had an opportunity to really kind of look at these folks. So co-working, right? Remote, we're in that remote space now. So looking for places for co-working. Sustainability, greener city. Improvements to the water system, autonomous vehicles. So Greater Topeka Tech Show, is that establishing one, or is that something that's already here?
I think Sherry was saying that they're working on it.
Gotcha. Okay. And some issues on streetlights as well. Also a safety issue. Okay, I know, please stop me if I'm scrolling too fast. So this is on Topeka as the place to be. So everything from partners working together to dispersing kind of events throughout the community, to really marketing what we already, marketing what we already do. Accessibility again. Having kind of that one specific area, like power and light or that kind of thing. Working with local and minority-owned businesses. And again, public transportation. Anybody want to comment on anything here? Okay, then lastly, ensure equitable investments across the community. Again, I haven't looked at this particular one. I had an opportunity as I was jumping around being the fly on the wall. And I apologize, all I should know this, but TGT, and it was earlier as well, should have asked about it.
Transient guest tax.
Ah, gotcha, thank you. I know what that is, I just did not know TGT, so thank you. Okay.
And that should probably be enhanced a little bit, as I think that came from our group. Probably needs to add to that an assessment of distribution. I guess that's where it is spent.
Yeah, where it's spent. Yeah.
Somebody was asking me about that earlier. I mean, basically, there is not. It is the current distribution of funds has been the same as it has been for the last 4 years, and so there's no, as I understand it, and so there's been no new allocation of funds for transient guest tax during that time frame. Stephen, is that right from your perspective?
By contract, that's correct.
Yep.
Okay.
I might give one last plug. Again, sorry for continuing to chat, but I think it's the bullet point 3 from the bottom there. Again, just simplifying it. Food deserts.
Right.
This was just north of the university, where there used to be a Dillon's a few years ago. Now, I think that area, and there's others throughout the city that don't have access to fresh groceries. So when we're talking about equity, especially as this relates to public health, I think that's really important to see how we can maybe bring in some kind of a resource for those areas to alleviate those issues.
Okay, thank you. I need to apologize for speaking up. That's what you guys are here for, so we appreciate it. Okay. So in terms of, anybody else had any comments on any of this right now? Anything else? So Steve, in terms of next steps.
So I think we've got so much data to look at right now that for us to go through it and try to summarize it would be not respectful of your time. So Patty, I think if you're good with it, Adam, Josh, Kalea, I think what I'd like to suggest here is that we actually adjourn early. Let us go offline and summarize the document that you just were looking at. Let us narrow it down to 5 or 6 or 7 initiatives and then send back to you tomorrow all of the raw data, but also a link to a poll so that you can help vote as to where your priorities are. But otherwise, I think what we're going to do is we're going to hold on to you for 30 minutes and then bring you back, and we're going to have to rush through it. And I think that's disrespectful to the work that you already done. Does anybody want to disagree with me on that?
Steve, the other thing that I'd like to suggest is in just looking at especially some of these later comments, they're similar to some of the neighborhood comments. And what I'd like to do is like have similar language, like, so go look at the neighborhood comments and have that be the same language here and see kind of where those fall in comparison with the neighborhood comments as well. So that when we're comparing, we're doing as much apples to apples as possible. So again, you would see, as Steve said, you would see the very raw data, everything that was listed, everything that we just went over, you would see that tomorrow. Then you would see how we condensed it. Because for instance, blight, there was a lot about blight, right? But I think it's about establishing a comprehensive blight abatement program, which would, include several of those things. So that would allow you to see how with the raw data, then how we changed it, and for you to actually then be able to assess it from that standpoint.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah, and just a question. Are we meeting again before the whole 100 or 125 meet? This work group done basically? Okay.
No,
yes.
work's done.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, if you would mark March the 10th on your calendar, again from 4 to 8. And that'll basically be a rundown or a report out, if you will, of the 5 groups. Some of you have been through, are going through multiples. Most everybody is not. So this will get a chance for everybody to hear what's being talked about, and before we send it all to the governing body.
I think we'll also have an opportunity. We don't know what that looks like because we don't know what the outcomes are, but for more engagement. So there'll still be some activity associated with that. So as you can expect, it's the balance between making sure people understand like what discussion you guys had and how it resulted in the priorities and those kinds of things. But it'll be both informing as well as engaging. So.
Yes, it's John Nave. Will we get some type of, I guess we'll get that March 10th, some information to us through email of the whole proposal?
Right. Yes. And we also will provide you, before then, we'll provide you the results of your particular polling. Like in that. So we'll, when we send out the email tomorrow with the links, et cetera, we'll give you a few days to answer that. And then, so let's just say it's till the end of the week, that early next week, you'd have the raw results of the polling as well. So then so you'd get that, and then you'll get more information related to the March 10th.
Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Anything else?
Yeah, Patty, this is Ken with the CAC.
Yes.
Having gone through the process you're just describing, some feedback for you. A number of folks wanted to know when they filled in their 1, 2, and 3, they didn't understand that it was 1 or 2 or 1, 2, or 3 per item they were voting on. And that it would, once they were done, since there was no submit, how they kept going on to the additional screens, how they could save their output so they'd know what they voted on. There were some questions about the process and how it worked on different systems. I know when I did my voting, all I could do was just say I'm done and put in the next URL and go to the next screen. I hope it did what it did and said saved everything.
It did. And we did have that feedback this morning from one other person, Kim. So we're going to be a little bit more explicit in the directions with the email that we send out. And so I can tell you that we had, except for one category, we had 30+ responses in all of them.
I'm glad
So-
to hear that, Pat. I just
Yeah.
wanted to bring it up. Sounds like
Yeah.
you're on top of it. So
No,
thank you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you raising it. Absolutely.
So Patty, I might throw out one question that was asked this morning. And it was, should a person vote as what they want to see for the community? Or should they vote as what they want the city to spend its money on the budget on? And the answer to that is the former. We want you to answer this as what do you want the city to be? What do you want to see in the city itself? Shamika, I think you asked about county. You know, that's where we take this information, we sort it through, we look for collaboration. In some cases, some of these ideas don't cost anything. And so those are good things. So don't vote on it as an expenditure, vote on it as your vision for the community.
Great. Okay, thank you, everyone. We really, really appreciate your time. Look for emails tomorrow with directions and links. And then, as I said, we'll follow that up once that polling is complete. We'll follow up with you regarding those results, but then you'll get more information before the March 10th meeting.
And this is John Nave. Will the next March 10th meeting, it will be virtual as well?
That's
Steve, what do you think?
As much as I'm probably going to say yes, and don't want to say yes, it's probably going to be a yes. John, as you know, putting 100 and some odd people on Zoom is going to be really, really difficult.
I'd rather be in person. I'm all zoomed out.
Well, and and honestly, our wish is to be in person, but we're also trying to be very careful with.
Right. Trust me.
Yeah.
Trust me. I understand.
Yeah. So at this point in time, it's probably going to be virtual, but cross your fingers.
Okay. I will. I prayed about some football games yesterday, and I won in my prayer on one. So,
well, I think maybe you're owed one. So,
right.
I appreciate you, John.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Enjoy the rest of your evening.